I call to order the session of the Hillsboro District Board of Directors at 6:16, and our first item is to discuss board self-evaluation with Kristen.
Hello again. I was just with you. I have a clicker, but I will. I have 2 slides. I can also just say next slide. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, nice to see you all again. So thank you for, I suppose I should introduce myself to the room. I'm Kristen Miles. I'm the Director of Board Development at the Oregon School Boards Association. And the board asked me to come in for a few moments and talk about doing a board self-evaluation. And so this would be, much like any other evaluation, where the board would assess itself on its own performance, behaviors, and characteristics. What we do, we have a specific tool that we use that's based on 12 research-based standards in a model that we have adopted called balanced governance. And so the balanced governance model is a model developed by Dr. Tom Alsbury, who is an internationally known researcher. It's based on decades of research into board governance and also the relationship between boards and superintendents and a board's likelihood of having a positive impact on student outcomes or also negative. So the self-assessment is based on those 12 standards. We know through research that a board's performance, when good on those 12 standards, positively impacts student outcomes. So the tool that we use is those 12 standards. And how, so we facilitate this self-evaluation. And the point is not necessarily just to take it. The whole point of this is, of course, the end, which is what you do with it. So just to go through the process, again, based in research, but what I would do is if you took this, it's 88 questions. It takes about 20 minutes, so doesn't take, over an hour or anything. There are several questions on each of the 12 standards, and I believe that we have gone over the standards before. If we haven't, what I would do is train the board on what those standards are, and that would just be a mini thing. That would probably be like half an hour of me popping into a meeting, or if you didn't have time for that, I also have written materials that I could send you ahead of time that were, here are the 12 standards, here's what we're looking at. Each of you would take the assessment individually. It is all reflection on the entire board, not on individual behaviors. We do have an assessment we do that's about that. That is a very different thing. And then what I would do is compile the report and do an analysis. You would also get the full report. So right away, there is a summary of your performance on all of the 12 standards. All of your information is compiled, and then on each of the indicators. So you would get from me a 36-page report initially to look at, and then we would meet. And in a 90-minute or so work session, we would go over a whole bunch of stuff. So I send you the report in advance, and you look at it. I send you some questions in advance to really consider. What are you seeing? What meaning do you make of this? What do you want to do with this? What questions do you have? And we look at, of course, overall strengths and trends, overall areas of improvement. Those are easy things. What are some specific strengths that you see, some specific areas of improvement? And then I get a report that you don't get, which is looking at, by the numbers, areas of congruence and incongruence. So even where you're rating yourselves high or low, where do you agree and where do you disagree? Where are you on the same page with something? Where are you not? Because those can be rich conversations as well. And so we really look at, what standards do you feel like you're proficient in? What standards do you feel like you need improvement in? And then really the important part of this is, what do you want to do with this now? One of the conversations that I always have with the board is, let's take your strengths and leverage those to address the areas of improvement. We don't ever talk about one side without talking about the other. We celebrate what you do well and take those things to talk about what you want to do better. So when we say goal setting, we know that you have large district goals and we want to make sure that we're not giving you too much work. But research also shows that boards that develop professional development goals for themselves also have positive impacts on students because they are, I mean, we expect everybody else in the district to do professional development. Boards should do that as well. And so we take the self-assessment, we help you set like maybe one or two, no more than that, professional development goals for the year, and leverage those strengths to set those goals. And so when you walk out of that session, you've got a report and a couple of professional development goals for the year, and that's all based in a research-based model. And so the other thing that we really try and do is ground your professional development goals in the work that you're already doing. So I don't ever want you to be doing work that is completely divorced from your strategic plan or the other goals that you have set for yourself. So we look at what are the goals that you are, or what is the work that the board is already doing relative to your strategic plan or the work that you have set for yourself. Can you work into that professional development that will enhance and support the work that you are already doing? So we talk about that as well, because I don't want you to double up and do double duty. We should leverage what you're doing as much as we can. That is the balanced governance assessment. Like I said, there's more information on that. Which of you of the board has heard of balanced governance? I know some of you have. Yeah, at least most, not all. Okay, new folks. Okay, new folks too. Okay, good. Like I said, I'd have written materials ahead of time if you didn't want me to pop into a meeting. What questions do you have about that process or outcomes? Or I will say one more thing. We have boards take this year over year, and if you do take it year over year, the report shows trends. So it shows like how you did last year, what you did this year, and then you can see changes in your scores year over year.
It's been a minute since we did the 12 standards.
Yeah.
It was sort of, as is too strong a word, but less organized.
Yeah.
With elections every 2 years for, a 4-year term, one of the reasons we COVID is but then sort of that natural turnover is sort of one of the reasons we maybe haven't done it as much lately. Mm-hmm. How does that sort of impact, like, when we do it with this group, it may not be the same group the next time we do it?
That's a fair question, and one that we get a lot. So one of the things that we know is that boards also develop a culture, right? Like you've got your governance documents, you've got your board operating agreements, communication protocols, board superintendent operating agreements. If you don't, right, develop those, but you've got the board culture that you establish through your norms, through your agreements, through the training that you do, through the governance models that you either do or don't use. And so by assessing how you do and how you perform, you are also establishing culture and norms. And so even through transition, what we see is the stronger the culture is on a board and the more established governance norms they have, the more consistent performance will be over time. And you'll still see growth even when there is some turnover on the board. Now, if there is huge turnover on a board, like that can throw it off. But if we see some sort of typical, like a board member or something, the entire culture of the board is not disrupted.
As new folks know that like the board, they will be. For me, that last point, like when we get to board goal setting time towards the end of the year, I think this would help us give us some, like all of the information we provide would help us create clearer goals, I think, at the end. But I like that idea. When would we start?
I'd say no earlier than spring, right? Because especially when you've got new folks, you want to give them an opportunity to at least almost complete a cycle. It's totally fair to do it spring or any time before the beginning of a year. Like if you were thinking about doing it like during a summer retreat or something like that. I know that spring is also busy. It's busy on my board, but so in a non-election year, anytime. In an election year, no earlier than spring. You have no turnover on your board. But I think timing it. If you already have established timelines during the year, you set goals like for a retreat or something, then that might be a good time.
In August?
Wrapped up by August.
I think this is something I've been on the board. This is my third school year, and we've talked about this every single time, but we've actually never gotten this far, which is, I'm glad, because if there's one thing that all ties into one of our things is accountability part. If we expect our, cabinet team to be accountable and do perform well, and, there's areas that always need improvement, we as a board also need that. And so I'm very appreciative doing this, and I want to move forward if my fellow board members also agree, just because I also want to know how to improve, what areas I can be better at, what areas as a board we can be better at. That's also, it ties really into the accountability part that we all talk about, and so that's really important to me. And I don't know how my other fellow board members feel about this, and I want to know, I want to hear what your thoughts are on it.
I will say that I'm looking forward to it. I think it's important, not just so obviously we're all on the same page and we're actually looking at data and doing all that, but it helps us kind of see what those soft skills individually that we need to work on, and also to be able to see the assets other people bring, because everyone has a perspective, and we don't get to come together to unpack what that means as a board, especially since we can't meet outside of that. So I think this is actually a very, when we went to the OSBA conference and being together, that was so important, I think, and we all talked about how great that was to hear what everyone thinks about certain topics. I think this is just kind of that, actually be reflective and do something with that reflection that's going to improve the board as a whole. So I'm excited for it.
Shane with us? Shane, do you have any comments? I'll just be talking down.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. Just joining. I was on audio earlier. But really looking forward to the board self-evaluation process. I know this is something that we have talked about, I think, for over a year now. Maybe it's been a couple of years. And I think it makes sense that we have Kristen here to help guide us through this, kind of in tandem with the board or with the superintendent evaluation. And so I think I missed a little bit about what the timeline will be and how that will kind of coincide with the superintendent evaluation. But I think, I'm very much looking forward to it. I think we have a highly functional board right now. And I think, I think this will set a good precedent moving forward for future boards to be able to evaluate themselves and really get kind of a temperature check on how we're doing. So, yeah, very much looking forward to the process.
And any other comments or questions?
I would want them to overlap too much. Doing the superintendent evaluation and us, just in terms of like, I wouldn't want to do too much of that work simultaneously.
If you're going to do your goals in August, I mean, you certainly start after. It's not a super laborious thing. It would be easy to start the process
after August?
No. Sorry. If you're going to do your goals in August, sorry, I barely finished my sentence, didn't I? Or completed it in a way that could be understood. If you're going to do your goals in August, you could start the process easily after the superintendent evaluation is done. There's a big gap in there.
Any other comments or questions for Kristen?
Yeah. Or for the fall out you
Oh, I'm very pro it, just selfishly because I'm a self-aware human being and I like to know in areas I can improve on. And I want to make sure I want to be the best version I can to be on this board. And I think just because we've talked about it for 3 years now, this is as far as we've come. I don't want to push it any longer.
As Chris pointed out, too, it actually gives us an opportunity for continuity board members or people are transitioning. So I think it can only help.
For the next step to be.
I mean, we can schedule it whenever you would like.
Great.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending so much time with us.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Our next agenda item is graduation rates with Audrey and David. Oh, you're back. Oh,
thanks, everybody. We are here to give you the official graduation update for the class of 2025. And as you know, this always comes a little bit later, even though graduation happened a while ago. It takes a little while for the state and all of the data to get inputted and get official and get stamped with the ODE approval. And so now we are here with the official numbers. So I wanted to walk you through this. Here's our plan for tonight, is to review and understand the graduation data for the class of 2025 for all of our students as well as our focal groups. We have key ones that we have been really and then review and understand our on-class data for the current classes, so what's sitting in for class of 26, 27, 28, 29, et cetera. And just know about current supports and challenges that are kind of upcoming. Before I get to the really good stuff, I thought it would be great because I've been here forever, and I just thought, well, there's some new folks in the room, and maybe just a little reminder of how graduation rates are calculated for those of you that don't know, and how it has changed. In 2008-9, the cohort model of tracking graduation rates was implemented, and basically what was changing about that is the moment a student enters high school, they become part of that cohort, and you have to keep track of them 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. Back in olden days, it was often you started your senior year. If you graduated, that was your graduation rate, with no targeting of making sure we got the 9th and 10th and 11th graders. So if a kid dropped in 9th grade, they weren't part of the cohort model back in the day. Now they are part of it. And when we have a student drop after 10 days, it's really important that we locate that student, make sure they're registered in their next district. If they've moved out of state, we want to make sure who found them. We often call that, when Dale Spitzer used to be here, we would be chasing kids, making sure, or get them re-enrolled back with us. So the cohort model basically, again, identifies the student, and then they are part of that with us unless they are transferred to another school, another district, or if they move to another country. That becomes basically our adjusted cohort. And then also the graduation rate back then also had an extended rate, which allows for an additional year of completion that's also tracked, and we report that as the fifth year cohort graduation rate. So I think that reminder is for some students, 4 years is optimal, and students, sometimes it's okay if we have to get them in the fifth year. We don't stop. Back in 2008, 2009, I dug it up, HSD had a 4-year cohort graduation rate of 75.6%. So that was 3 out of 4 would graduate in our district, or another way to look at it, 1 out of 4 would not graduate. We did not like that rate and did not want that to continue. And there were a lot of things that we've done before my time, before David's time, but a lot of us that have been here a long time saw all of these things start to happen. So I just put, this is by no means a list of everything that we have done in HSE to support the graduation rate increasing over time, but these are some things that I think should be highlighted, and they are key investments and priorities that we have done as a district that we should be proud of and you as a board should be proud of. So thinking about dual language programs, we now have every high school has a graduating class with dual language. We also have started Spanish literacy at our elementary schools to support that. We've seen a significant increase in career and technical ed and college and career pathway, or career and college pathways. Our on-track work, we've done a lot of investment in that and tracking of our cohorts. We have a focused and integrated model for ELD in our schools that we have invested in. We have worked on an inclusion model for our students that are experiencing disabilities. Our family engagement and partnership has grown astronomically in the last 20 years and has been really a great thing for us. The monitoring of student enrollment in and out of the four-year cohort. The most important thing we do is track kids, and sometimes that can be something that you don't always think about, but I always talk about the numerator and the denominator of our graduation rate and making sure we know where all of the students are and being very mindful. The high schools run really amazing spreadsheets from the moment those kids start in 9th grade and track them through their 12th grade year. We've had the expansion during that time since 2008 of our HOA and our online school, and we've also started up hub classes at our high schools. The Pathways Center was done with the last bond, which helps support Diploma Plus, GED, and increasing our access for early college. So that's just a small list of amazing things that we have done since 2008 to 2009. Many of those things kind of came about through the last bond, through different work that has been done. So there's a lot of things that I think we have done that I think really attribute to the success that we've been seeing over particularly these last 10 years. So just really excited. This is for Nancy. This is the class of 2025, and this is what their year looks like. Their 4 years of high school. Their freshman year for this class, that was return to school. So they had been in hybrid. They came back to school their freshman year. Maybe a little bit of a hot mess coming back from that. That was a transition year. Very tough year.
Great is when they went home in spring break?
Yes. And then sophomore year, a little bit more typical. Junior year, a little bit more typical. Senior year, a little bit more of a typical year. So just so you have that reference. This is how the class of 2025 came into the school year, at the start of the school year, with 72% roughly on track to graduate during that time. Just a reminder, this is our HSD model for on track, which is a little bit more, I would say, robust than the ODE model. I've talked about that before. And we having at the beginning of their senior year, having at least 18 total credits and at least 14.5 of those being in core. Also, just a reminder, we operate a schedule at the high school level that offers 32 credit opportunities. You only need, how many to graduate? 24 to graduate. We'll have a pop quiz later. So just a reminder, we do run a schedule that has multiple opportunities for credit. So now here's the really good, exciting news. So if you take a look, this is HSD. This is all together, all of our schools over the last 3 years. In 2023, we were 86.8, 87.55. And this year in HSD, for the first time ever, we crested 90%, which is really, really exciting. So thinking about all those key investments and priorities and the work that we've done, we're starting to see those things play out in our district for sure. Really, really exciting. I really, truly believe there were a lot of those key investments and priorities prior to 2020 that we were really on track with. I think 90% was in our future prior to 2020. We just had the little hiccup of the pandemic, and I really think that had an impact, and we had to get things back on track. And there were some tough years coming out of 2020, and I really feel like all of our systems got back aligned in these last couple of years where we were less stressed about pandemic, more focused on instruction, engagement, and connection with kids. So really, really exciting. We have seen some great growth in every one of our schools. We've got Glencoe High School that is at 94%, which is pretty amazing to get to. That's probably like to get to 94, 95. Yeah. That's amazing. I don't know if I'd love to dream that we'll get to 100%, but I feel really good at 95%. And I know sometimes it might take a fifth year for some kids. So that just happens. I think really exciting to also see is our HOA. They really leaned into the on-track work in a more meaningful way at their school. And we have really seen a big pop. Last year they went up by 9. This year they went up by another almost 9%. So over the last 2 years. And this is a lot of just connections with kids, better tracking systems and structures, and really just doing an amazing job with that. The other thing I want to note is our 5-year cohort completers. So remember, sometimes we can get everybody in 4 years. Sometimes they need a 5th year. This graduation rate of this class was 88.8%. It was 87.5 roughly, and now that group, that 5th year group, we got to 92%. So I think all of those are really exciting to see and really to be proud of. Another one that's really exciting, Century did get to 95 in the 5th year group of their group that graduated in 2024 with a 90% rate. Really, really exciting.
Is it ironic that everyone said 90%?
Where are you at?
And 5-year cohort. Like there's, 3 and 4 and 90%. Yeah.
If I just an overall state comparison from 2019, the state is in red, HSD is in blue, and where the trajectory has gone over the past 6 years. Take it over. Those of you that don't know, I think everybody knows David here. But David is our executive director of high schools, and this work would not be possible without him. And he does an amazing job. One of the greatest things we did was hire a former high school principal to be in charge of high school, and it has paid off in dividends for us as well. So I'll turn this over to you to talk about the next couple of things.
All right, I'm going to jump into the strat plan here in a moment. But before I do so, I just want to pause and recognize that this isn't a high school conversation. This is a conversation that is K-12. It's a conversation that involves licensed teachers. It involves classroom experiences. It involves classified teachers. It involves administrative support. It's a team up and down the system and across the system. And there's no way that we could be celebrating here at this graduation rate if we didn't just pause and recognize that in every one of our buildings, there is work happening at the individual student level. At the high school level, Audrey referenced it, we have a really robust tracking system that every single student by name, especially students who are on the verge of not graduating, can be identified going in their junior year and track through their senior year, and really following the systems. Yesterday, I sat with all the 12th grade administrators navigating this year's graduating class and looking at their spreadsheet. Every single one of our high schools, including Oak Street and HOA, can name by student the needs of these students to get them across the line and what they need, either 5-year completers or in a 4-year graduation cohort, which is important. And with that said, going back to the strat plan is our goal that we're striving to, we're reaching for, that we set out for ourselves. And our goal was 88.9% by 2027. Well, we met the goal. That doesn't mean our work is done. It means we can celebrate that we've met our goal. We're working hard to meet our goal, but we can always continue to improve alongside our staff to meet the needs of students. On the right-hand side, you'll see the growth targets, and you'll see in that middle, I don't know how to use this.
Which
one is it?
Right here. This one right here. The little, the one that you can't see.
Oh, this is going to be a problem for someone with ADHD. I'll tell you right now. This box right here is experiencing houselessness. It's one of our target groups, and you'll see in a couple of minutes when we look at some of our focal areas, the data with experiencing houselessness. And right below this, we see students accessing special education services. So those students are on IEP. And there's some exciting data that we're seeing with last year's graduation class as we move forward. So going to the next slide, I want to highlight the columns that are highlighted in blue here. And you can kind of see by student group, Hispanic, Latino, American Indian, et cetera. These are the federal reporting systems or groups, and these are the same ones the state use. We have to report on these systems. So internally in HSD, we may use different definitions, but we have to report to the federal level and the state level on these identifiers. So historically, many of the groups on the left-hand side has experienced an opportunity gap in the learning experience. And if you look at this one right here, American Indian and Alaska Native, that is not highlighted in blue, and that is one of our focal groups within our strat plan that we're really leaning into. And you will notice that in 2025, that is a 91.7%. That equates to 11 of 12 students who identify as Alaskan Indian or Native American have graduated last year. So 11 out of 12, so you can tell we're looking at the finite numbers. Now, when you get to that level of a student population demographic, you're looking at individual students. If the data is suppressed, and we'll see it better in the next slide, if there's data that is suppressed, it means there's fewer than 10 students that can be reported in that group. And the reason we don't report that out at the state or federal level or the district level is because most times you can identify those students by name because there's so few students per school. So we just suppress the data and don't share that. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But if we look at the columns that are in blue right here, the grad rate, you can see by student focal group, some growth across the board. 2.26 with Hispanic Latino students. American Indian, Alaska Native, 32.88% delta change. Amazing. When we look at students like second from the bottom, multiracial, that minus 0.34, we're looking at a numbers game. Because once again, you're looking at the number from year to year of students who self-identify within that population. So that number is going to shift every year based upon the students who compose that focal group over time. It's not a static number. It's very organic based upon the cohort of that graduating class. We have work to do in this slide, as you can notice with our different groups. But at the same time, we can celebrate because if you look at the state average on the right-hand side, we are well above the state average, which is great news. This is a different way of looking at our focal groups and our student identified groups. So the top left identified group is students with disabilities, so students who are on an IEP. And then if you look at the third one down, the homelessness students who identify as homeless. And those are highlighted in blue because those two focal groups are also in our strat plan. So we're leaning into those populations alongside the other highlighted populations to identify how we're going to support students. I want to really lean into the minus 4.39% here when we look at the delta change with migrants. And the reason I want to lean in there is because this is purely a numbers game in this one. And we also have situations going around beyond the school district. There might be political situations. There might be financial situations. There might be family choice of students attending school or not being in the cohort. I mean, we need to be cognizant of that because we have a lot of mobility within the migrant population. So knowing that once again, that number is going to fluctuate from year to year, but minus 4.39%, we notice that we need to do some work supporting our students who identify as the migrant population. I mentioned that I'm going to come back to the suppressed data and looking at the foster care line there, third from the bottom. The data is suppressed because last year we had 6 students who identified themselves in the foster care system, 6 out of 6 graduated. So it's 100% of students in the population. It's just fewer than 10, so it's not public data. So yeah, exactly. Go ahead. No,
one quick highlight just in this one. Our Students with Disabilities group has been a group that we have historically been under 80% with for quite some time. And I just want to give a shout out to our student services team for that work. They really did do a lot these last 2 years to try to increase that number, and we saw some great things occur for our graduation rate. And that was exciting growth for them that they were very, very proud of, and that we are all very, very proud.
Totally. And then going back on that same slide, going down to former English learners, so those students who exited prior to high school and the ever English learners, both of those are above 90%. That is an accomplishment that the entire HSD system should be celebrating. That means we've invested energy and time and resources supporting those who live in our community. And it is just an area that we can celebrate. And Audrey is going to highlight some comparisons here in a couple moments. But it just warms my heart to look at that number.
Can you refresh us on what it means, the difference between the ever learners of prior and the...
So former English learner exited prior. That means they passed the ALPA before they started high school in the 9th grade format. So they exited the ALPA. Ever English learner is that group, including our English learners. So it's at any point in your K-12 time with HSD, you were identified as an English learner, you're in that. So that ever English learner is a larger or a large set of the English learners and the former English learners.
The reason the state splits it out is much lower likelihood of graduating if you're receiving EL services while you're in high school. Yeah, that's what it is.
And so this is why we always hopefully exit EL services before they start high school. You know, they will see exactly what they're.
And just building on what Derek and Audrey said, in HSD, that population is above 90% for both subgroups, which is a highlight.
Say one more thing too. I started my career as an English learner teacher. This is a smaller group in some school districts, but in our school district today, 1 out of 5 students are active English learners. So 20% of our students today receive services from a specialist who's trained to. When you see these of our student body who are being really successful in our school district, so I'm celebrating that one.
Mm-hmm.
We were in one spot.
Yeah.
Talked about the importance of early biliteracy and all that.
As we kind of put the 2 previous slides together and think about highlights and notes, and this is, once again, I want to highlight behind each of these bullet points are multiple staff members, multiple classified staff working together, supporting students, because this is really what happens in a classroom. You look at the top point, the opportunity gap, right, as Hispanic, Latinx, and our students that identify as white, is a difference of less than 3 percentage points. That is a stark improvement from prior year's data, and so still work to be done, but continuing to work together and collectively supporting students. I'm going to go to the second from the bottom. Students who are former language learners are now above 95%. I just want to let that sit for a second because we need to be thoughtful there. And then I alluded to the bottom bullet point around migrant experience, the decrease in the grad rate. And what we don't know, because we can't track it, are the immigration factors and the political climate factors. And so when we don't want to bias that data, we don't want to bias that conversation, we just can't track it very well. But we want to know that it exists for our community, and we function in partnership in our community to make sure we're supporting students, whatever that data is. I'm going to pass it back to Audrey for her favorite slide of all slides. Yeah.
I know. It is really exciting. And what David said, it is not just one person figuring this out. It's not one principal figuring this out. It's not one teacher figuring it. It is a collective group. But in our highlights and notes, out of the 6 largest districts in Oregon, which, to remind you what those are, PPS, Portland Public, Beaverton, Salem Kaiser, then Hillsboro, then Ben Lapine, then North Clackamas. So for the 6 projects, we had the highest grad rate for the students who identify as Hispanic with an OX, and then the highest grad rate for students that were former English learners exited prior to high school. The highest grad rate for students who are English learners anytime in high school. The highest grad rate for students that are experiencing helplessness. The highest grad rate for students experiencing disabilities. The highest grad rate for students experiencing poverty. And those were just the ones I pulled from the data. We also had the highest grad rate overall in those collective 6 large districts, and the highest grad rate percentage increase among those 6. If you read the Oregonian, in the metro area, we were 4th in the metro area, only behind Westland, Wilsonville, Sherwood, and Lake Oswego. I will let you. And I want all of our kids across the state to graduate, but I'm particularly proud.
Well, when our class size goes down to 20, then we can do that, right?
So just really proud of this work. I think when I looked at that paper and saw the 3 that were above us in the metro area, I thought, okay, I feel pretty good about it. Pretty proud of everything that our team has done. This one I'm going to kick back to David. This is graduation with classes moving forward.
Right, we're going to do a little shift here from the last year's graduation data and look forward. But before we do so, kind of thinking around what it looked like with COVID. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because Audrey referenced it earlier, but just recognizing that all of our students in the system had at some point interrupted learning through a structured model. And learning happens at all times, but it just looked different. And we need to name that and just work through that. Now, high schools look much more typical pre-COVID now than they did a couple of years ago because it's just we're getting better at supporting our students. But as I said, we're going to kind of look at what does on track and off track look like as we move forward. This is current semester 1 data, and you will notice in the bottom of the slide, the class of 2023, the class of 2024, the second bar graph, all the way up to the class of 2029. Preliminary semester 1 data. The reason it's preliminary semester 1 data is because there's incompletes that are always going to be cleaned up at the end of semester 1. So teachers inputted grades on January 30th, February 1st, like 2 weeks ago. We have some students who have incompletes that are working with their teachers to make up those incompletes. We have some students who are in academic options. And so we just take the data as a snapshot in time today to look at where we're at. I want to highlight the top purple bars as they show on this screen. Every screen is different, but how they look here with what I'm looking at. And you will notice that we range somewhere between 14.94 and 24.93, hovering around 20%. Pretty typical on-track data as we look at students who are on track in that 9th grade year. This year at 20.14%. Of students who are off track with 79.86 students who are on track. Audrey alluded to this earlier. In HSD, we track data a little more tightly than ODE does. We are counting core credit, not just all credit. So we look at the core classes and how students are doing in their math, science, social studies, and language arts. Language arts includes Spanish language arts for the 9th grade year. And then 10th when I get there. So we're at a little tighter definition. We think that helps us moving through in our support systems, 9th grade through 12th grade, because we can that are necessary. But right now we're hovering at 20.14%, which is not statistically abnormal from where we have been.
Let's go back up a second.
Yeah.
It's not a huge surprise that one of the best 9th grade on track.
Correct.
Right. I mean,
Correct.
No shock that they're.
So just out of curiosity then, so the class of 2026, they will graduate this spring. And then we know that they're about 77% on track. We know that there's about 23% that aren't quite on track. That's a good, solid number. So I take it that all the schools are focusing on making sure that we can take that number and decrease it down to something a lot less.
And Nancy, building on that, I'm going to go to that number. So remember that 23% that Nancy just highlighted.
For the class of 2020.
The class of 20.
Remember that.
Yeah. Now I'm going to go right here. This is that same class. Coming into this school year, that is 20.30% roughly.
So they're
already going down. Since I'm on this slide, I'll highlight that it's not abnormal. We're actually in statistical range because a lot of students, their senior year, going into the senior year, are taking advanced classes. And we're talking about a very large percentage. And all of our students have an academic jump the 11th grade year. And so when we look at that jump, we notice there's an academic jump going into the 11th grade year, coming out of the junior year, and we're decreasing and off track. So we feel good with this number, knowing that we still have 20% we got to work with.
But so your point was that look at this, hold that number because we're already less than that 22%.
We're already starting to see it go down. 10th grade, this is the current 10th grade class, so the current 10th graders in all of our high schools. We're at 16.11%, which means coming out of 9th grade, we're seeing a really good decrease of students who are off track. Going into 11th grade, 19.86. This is the academic jump that students are experiencing. There's an academic jump that happens in 3rd grade, 7th grade, and 11th grade that all students see. It's just advanced academic rigor. And so this number of 19.86 is a pretty good number as we look into what's going to happen in the future. Once again, remembering that we line to the core in HSD, so we're looking at those 24 credits getting to the required graduation requirements. We offer 32, but we're really trying to make sure our students are successful in the core classes. I've already highlighted this slide with Nancy's question. And is this mine or yours?
I think this one's fine.
Awesome. Passing it back. No, I don't. This is your slide.
I think one of the things is I got really excited when you see information about it, and then sometimes you read into the comments of social media, and then sometimes just don't read the comments in social media. I think sometimes that's a better choice to actually do. But I wanted to talk about graduation rates versus test scores, and I think sometimes comments you might see is like, oh, they're getting a lot. They don't pass their state test. How can they be graduating? And I kind of want to just give some information to that, and you can choose to, feel free to ask questions if you do. But I think it's important to know graduation rates reflect whether students complete required credits and coursework over time. And in this case, our goal is always 4 years. Sometimes it's 5 years, right? But 4 years is our goal. So graduation, over 4 years of work. In a time where 32 credits are given, we need to get 24. We've got opportunities to support kids in many different ways. Test scores, on the other hand, are measure academic proficiency at one point in time in the middle of their junior year, or 3/4 of the way into their junior year, and are definitely more sensitive to student engagement and not always taken in the context of coursework. So I think there is a difference for what a rate tells us versus what test scores tell us. Both are important measurements, right, in our system, but I think it's really important. One of the conversations that I know Travis has been in with other superintendents is that state testing measures are set at college readiness standards. I think while we obviously want our kids to be prepared for college as an option, and we definitely have work to do on that, we also know and acknowledge college is not the only viable career pathway to a highly high-demand job. I think we've talked about this before when you talk about state testing, especially at the high school level. Oregon's permissive opt-out levels definitely makes it a challenge to create this strong correlation between state testing and graduation rates. And I think, again, we talked about this as well. Testing in the 11th grade year is a challenge when other assessments are competing. It will always be a challenge.
Is that opt-in rule? Any chance that might go away?
State law, it would take legislative action for that.
You can do whatever you.
What I'm saying is it wouldn't happen if it would be legislative action. Not the state would have it.
I think one of the things that I also want to point out is sometimes people talk about it was harder to graduate back in my day of high school, or back, sometimes that comes up. And I want you to think back to that list I showed you at the very beginning of our key investment and priorities that we've done. Those things didn't exist necessarily. Dual language didn't exist when I was in high school, I know that for sure. Different CTE pathways did not exist in the same way they exist now, with more connection to high-wage, high-demand jobs. The conversation around career and college pathways, I mean, those are all things that have allowed for more engagement for our students. And I think high school had a structure for it that was definitely built in a way that was specific to one type of student. And I think what we offer now is broadened. And I think that's why you see graduation rates going up. Students see themselves in different spaces in high school. I think, again, graduation rates show progress in keeping students enrolled, earning diplomas, while test scores highlight where there's continued instructional focus that we need to do. And again, both are important metrics, but one does not necessarily tell the whole story, if that makes sense. I really think our graduation rates tell the whole story of a student over 4 years.
I agree to stay on college talking healthier, but I can't do it. The blunt answer to someone who says, boy, it's amazing how high a graduation rate can be when you lower the standard. The answer is we didn't lower standards. We created more opportunity.
Yeah.
Right.
More support. That is I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, Mark. Thank you.
And I think building on that, Mark, you're exactly right. I think, we provide more opportunities, and we're meeting students where they are.
Yeah.
And some of our students need different pathways. And so really working with the student in partnership with the family. And one of the things that HSD does really well is partnering with families and really supporting. So that's part of that equation early on in the conversation.
I want to add to what you just said, David, because I was just thinking about those numbers when you were talking about 2025 class, and then we went into thing. One of the things that HSD really, really focused on was equity, access, and engagement, knowing that those are the biggest reasons why students will drop out or will not be successful. And we got our family engagement up and going. We did a lot of equity training. We made sure that all of our schools had equity teams. We made sure that educational equity was at the center of all of our conversations. And we had our grad coaches in on those conversations, our family liaisons, all of them. And so I truly, truly, truly think that those numbers would not be as high if we didn't have that in place here in HSD. And like you were just saying, like we're now engaging families, which it's not that they weren't engaged before, but it's different when you're participating versus engaging. Like we're actually having conversations, and it's not just us telling them information. It's really like give us feedback on how to do better, and it's showing. And our students are thriving, even though those test scores might not show it now. I think this is like step one. Like you're coming to school, you're graduating, you're invested, you're choosing CCP, you're doing all that. So those test scores are bound.
Right. This year and looking ahead, I think all of our work is coming together. All of the wheels are starting to connect and work really well for us. I think we will continue, obviously, our Pathway Center and our Oak Street campus work with continued options and flexibility, multiple ways to earn credit through academic options or Hillsboro Online Academy. We will continue our on-track work and course outcome work. Our family engagement and community partnership is really essential to this. Summer school funding does support us for sure, and what we've been able to do through the grants that Brooke has supported in our summer school options for high school has made a huge difference for our graduation rates too. That is helpful. I want to acknowledge, though, I'm going to celebrate and live in this moment of above 90%, but also a $20 million cut just came into our budget this year, and we have already cut staffing at the high school. We just to name a few things at the high school level, as well as class size at the elementary, there was a lot of things that are going to start to impact. But just at the high school alone, we had lost a counselor there. We had a grad coach reduction. We've lost a TOSA that was really focused on some of that data component for high school success. And then going into next year, knowing what Scott had shared the last time, we are going to see additional cuts. And our goal will be to sustain and keep targeting on focal groups that we want to increase their graduation rate. But know that those hits are hard, and we will do our best, but those budgetary challenges are real and will be a challenge for us. I am very hopeful. There's great data that shows our students are set up for success, especially the class of 26. I feel like we are going into this year as good systems, but we are seeing things get a little bit tougher with the loss of some of those key staff that supported a lot of that work. So the next one, and I know you asked questions a long way, but we're happy to answer any other questions for you. And just wanted to reiterate again, thank you for everybody's support on this. We would not be able to do it without the amazing humans that we have in our district.
I just want, pardon me, well done, fabulous, phenom, fantastic. So let's have a party, and then when we get done party, let's make sure that you guys stay close steps with what Travis is doing, as the board is really concerned about understanding exactly how the dollars reductions are going to impact everything we do. Because we are in a great space, and then we're being hit again with craziness that nobody can make sense of because it doesn't. So I implore you, just please celebrate for the rest of this month. You might as well go ahead. We're not going to get anything done by the end of February. But just celebrate for the rest of this month. But then keep us posted. Let's tie it to our strategic plan. Let's specifically know how far we're going to deviate, how we're going to lose. I mean, if we're losing a grad coach, who else can help with grad coaching? Do we need to recruit volunteers? What do we need to do? Because it's real. And I can't even imagine living in a school district smaller than ours that doesn't have the resources that we do. It's absolutely stunning what is about to come our way if they just do half of what they think they want to do. Thank you, and congratulations.
We're used to outperforming our demographics, and we've been finding ways to do more with less for a very long time. Lots of things feel different than before. Like, it feels like things are, even our country down before this down feels a little bit different than other down. And I worry that we're at a spot where doing more with less is going to break it. Yeah, like, there's only so much more you can do with less. But I have a couple specific slide questions. Easy.
We're ready.
Slide 6, Kira, slide 1 or 2 back, I think. There you go. So this, just to make sure I understand this stuff. Class of 2025 that crested 90% for the first time ever began the 12th grade with over 27% off traffic. That's correct. Last report. Our graduation, which is people sit in the building, to change that to be 90%, 27% or more start the year on track. Slide 10, Kira. The fact that none of our vocal groups, sorry, next slide, I think. Oh, I may have different numbers. None of our focal groups are data suppressed, so that means we don't have fewer than 10 in any of those groups.
Any of those groups, and none are less than 10, correct. Some might be 11 or 12, but none are 10.
Okay. Next slide. Sorry, back one. You mentioned the migrant numbers. This we track as a cohort, and you're part of the cohort from the 9th grade on. This may not be something you know right now. If not, you can just email me later or something. Just curiosity. Are there more students identifying as migrant when they're in the 12th grade than they were in the 9th grade? Like, did the size of that cohort grow or shrink over the school year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get
we
that.
can find that. Yeah.
I'm 92% positive it's smaller this year than it was, or smaller for the class of 2025 than it was for the class of 2022. but I will get you the
Not
number.
necessarily. I'm saying when the class of 2025 began the ninth grade.
Okay.
What is
What
the
was-
word?
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would bet there, probably.
We can get that for you.
Mhm.
But since we track everybody together as a cohort,
Yeah.
if they leave the system, we track down where they went, like you mentioned. Are they in the school district, they go to a different state or whatever. May not be easy to do that. I appreciate you doing all that work. Just curious, just my curiosity.
There are sometimes kids that don't that's what I would say every Sure. Yep.
Yeah, I would bet that's true.
I think it's current.
We have that number. We can find that number.
Thank you. Thank you.
Carrie, you're doing great. I really appreciate that. I don't have to keep
So you say students experiencing disabilities. Is it sort of fair to just generalize that students on IEP, students on 504?
that is students only on an IEP. Yes.
Okay. And we're at 14 point.
Just if I got that because Katie had asked me that question, so I'm going to share that answer because she'd asked. It's 15.11%.
Well, and reimbursed by the state at
11%. That's
right. We advocated pretty heavily for that.
Yes.
Is 15.7%? Is that 15? Is that growing? Right there, are there more?
I would say it hovers between 14 and 15.
Yeah, it's great.
So it grew from those in 1992, or whatever they set this level. It was roughly around 11%. Do we feel like we're leveling off at about 15.5%, or do we expect it to grow to 18? Do we expect it to shrink back to 11?
I don't suspect it will go back to 11. I would say it's pretty static over the years.
Yeah. It'll be underfunded
Yes.
by the state for this particular category program.
Yes.
Just started kindergarten.
We'll call it like specific.
We need to get a migrant answer back to you. That would be good.
Not a question, but just a comment. One thing that I didn't hear on here that I know that we're doing, but I think is important to bring up is the work that we've done on social emotional learning and the competencies, which I think are huge. As we know, those are really connected to the employability skills, and I think that is something that I've always been so proud of HSD to focus on with our students, because we have more connected they are with their identity, the more self-aware, the more we're helping them with responsible decision-making and social awareness. All of those skills help them not just when they graduate and start looking into their career or life choices, but it helps them get to graduation. And I think that's huge. And I appreciated what you said, that it's not a high school conversation. It is a K-12 conversation. I would say pre-K. And I think that those social emotional skills, I know, have benefited my children in so many ways, and even myself, those adult competencies made me a better educator, a better teacher, in many ways, a better coach, a better colleague. And so I didn't see it on here, not that we're not doing it, but I think it's important to say that that's something that I think is going to be even more important now, especially with how things are going. And I think it's like something that our students are going to need intentionally so that we can continue to help them get to where they need to be to graduate and then on.
Great one. We could ask for the key investments in there. That is the last, especially last month. We've done a lot.
Huge, yeah.
Great one. So what's the last one?
I have a question. So I know the people with disabilities only consider students with IEPs. What's the percentage of students who have 504s and IEPs in high school?
So you either have a 504 or an IEP. So, and I don't know 504 off the top of my head. That would be another data set that we would need to get to. But the state doesn't have us submit that data, which is why it doesn't show up in a graduation like grouping in that way. But I can get that number to you for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my next, or more of a comment, has to do with migrants and Hispanic community, specifically with like the graduation rate and the importance of it. I think despite what the numbers are showing, I think we, as a district, we're doing really well with our staff members, with ourselves, our family liaisons, our focus on specifically that focus with middle school and high school. I think the numbers would be a lot more. That's that. That's just my comment. Thank you very much for sharing that.
Audrey and David, I emailed you and told you about my very happy emotional reaction to seeing these numbers when you sent them out. But I just wanted to say in our meeting, thank you so much for presenting this data to all of us. I think that we are celebrating as a district. I appreciate the cautious optimism about numbers looking ahead, but I really think that as Jessica reiterated, this is a very important K-12 conversation, and coming off of a very disruptive middle school experience, these numbers are fantastic, and I think that we see in our homes and in our student representatives that class of 2026 is doing all right. So I'm really, really happy that this is reflected and you're seeing it in all your classmates. I appreciate you all.
I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation and all the work that you do. This is a great highlight and exciting news to hear. I know a book I'm reading, and it's the subject of it is just about like to Nancy's point, it's like this rural, small town in Ohio, Urbana, Ohio, and just how their grad rates have declined over the last 40 decades, and how it comes down to like grad coaches and community, and instilling that into children and community from the beginning, because education is important, and it's crucially important now in a time where we find ourselves anti-intellectualism phenomenon happening in this country. So I just wanted to say thank you, because there's little small parts that we can do here, and I know here at HSC you all care, and it shows, and just the progress that happens year after year. Doesn't go to say it's easy, because it's not. Every year, every day brings something new. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for all the work that you do. And well, thank you. And then with that, we will discussion time. And then we'll start with our student representative. Wait. What? You caught me off guard. I am really excited how you guys are going to problem solve with financial I still have a lot of support. I don't think it is as doom and gloom as we imagine it. I'd like to comment that. I know that you're a little late, but I was really surprised and I'm really happy. But the budget cuts and the current climate of our country that we will persevere through, and that I have so much thanks to the people who have helped me. David Pasqua, he worked a lot with me, and he's just incredible to have, and definitely one of the reasons that I was in the class. And thank you so much to the people that are here supporting and asking our grad coaches and counselors and all of us. And then other exciting news, I got selected to the Hillsboro Art and Culture Council. And
I'm happy to do that. I have 6 of them. Yes, I do. All right.
Thank you. This year I've been trying to use my comment time to highlight things that are going on in the broader community just to inform. And on January 30th, Director Watson, Director Ryan, and Chair Pantoja and I got to go to a town hall at Pacific University with some elected officials and the Attorney General. And I was very interested to learn the Attorney General's comments on what his role has been since coming into that office in relationship to the federal government and his role as the lead attorney for the state of Oregon. And a couple points that I wanted to share are just that he has taken pride in the way that states have responded to terms and conditions lawsuits that have come against the federal government for trying to provide terms and conditions for the receipt of federal dollars. The way that that showed up in my life as a superintendent was that last Valentine's Day, we started getting letters from the federal government saying your money is going to be cut off unless you stop doing DEI work or equity. And states responded to that by suing the federal government to stop the blocking of funds. And so in that year that has transpired since then, the Attorney General of the state of Oregon said that $4.6 billion of federal funds have still made it to Oregon despite the threat that we would be cut off for refusing to stop DEI work in the state of Oregon. I thought that was worth mentioning. He also mentioned that the attorneys general of different states, including Oregon, have been working to protect student data privacy and to block data brokerages from selling data to the federal government from states. So I was not aware of those things had I not listened to the attorney general talk about the work that he's doing to protect the rights of people who live in our state. Things to celebrate. Black History Night at South Meadows was awesome and better attended than anything. Congratulations, Francesca, for you and your team. Thank you for everybody who showed up and helped sponsor that event and celebration. Last night, hosting LGBTQ plus community night with games. Thank you, Francesca and team, for creating a safe space. Thank you to the Hillsboro Police Department for showing up to play games with us. Attendance in general has been up since October and November when it dipped noticeably, we think, based partly on what was happening out in the community with ICE activities, except for a concern that we talked about this morning about newcomers to our community having lower attendance. Overall attendance numbers are up and more stable than they have been since the pandemic, which is a credit to the folks who are part of a larger conglomerate of folks who are trying to address the drop in attendance that we've experienced since COVID. That's a promising sign for us, is that our students are more in school than they have been the last couple of years. I also want to celebrate the graduation rates again, just an appreciation to all those in the community who've wrapped around our schools and our students. I can't do a better job of explaining it than David and Audrey did tonight. I also want to thank the board for setting direction with our strategic plan, which loudly communicates a belief that all of our students can be excellent and can be successful in our schools. And so thank you for setting that as the bar for what we do in HSD. And I just want to share my gratitude for everything that's gone into those successful graduation rates. That is all. Thank you.
Patrick?
Nothing too new this month. Just thanks for all the information. Good meeting.
Yes.
I think I said plenty. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Francesca and team for the Black History celebration. I got there a little late, but as the second wave of food was arriving, it was pretty awesome. I got an opportunity to participate. Beth and her team are absolutely amazing. I had the best visual aids of all of the 12 or 13 stages. Katie was there as an attendee. Did you say that's true?
I would absolutely say that. In a public forum.
Yeah. I'm bragging about our team because they did such an amazing job. I participated in the Living Library Project, which is part of the 150th anniversary of Hillsboro, the school district, older than the city of Hillsboro. 1950, I think, and then they raised $600 to build a log cabin for our very first building. So a lot of pictures and stuff, and if you ever get a chance, you can visit some of the history of our district. just in that little display case downstairs in the border. There's a ton of really amazing items in there. Many of them too fragile for me to bring, or like at least to entrust somebody like me with them. So I just took the big stone, the cornerstone that says 1912 from the original Peter Bosco building. I had that on display over there as well. So thanks to Beth and her team for all the displays today. It was a great event. Look for all the upcoming events throughout Hillsboro birthday celebration. Yes. A few of us did attend that town hall in Forest Grove. It got very emotional at times. And, you know, it just reminds me, I'm a gray-haired white guy. I cannot know what it means to not be that, because well, I can be empathetic, I can listen, but I will never have like what it means to not be a gray-haired white guy. So, 1 week from Saturday is the Hillsboro School Foundation Gala. If you haven't told Beth you want to attend and you do want to attend, please do that tonight. Look forward to seeing some of you there. It's not dress up for a change, which is great. It's beach theme. So I don't think I can fit into the white pants that I bought years ago.
I echo what my colleague said about Francesca and your team, and also I definitely saw Brooke and Audrey working hard at the 3-month celebration. I also want to just call out Shalana Canfield specifically because she just really was like the Energizer Bunny that night, like just zipping everywhere. So she really made the event special for the whole community. Thanks, Mark, for representing us at the Living Library, and thank you also Nicole and her colleagues on the Youth Advisory Council for the Hillsboro City put on the Access to Success College and Career Fair at the end of the month in January, and I had the honor to attend, and it was very well attended. They were incredibly smart to do it on a day off of school. So there were a lot of people who, came on their own or with their parents and had an opportunity to see like a lot of different breadth of options. So thank you again for putting that event on for our community. And also wanted to shout out, it's almost time for spring play season, and Glencoe is going to kick us off starting next weekend. So if you are interested in seeing a farce called Sweet Surrender, that's what the Glencoe High Theater Company is doing, and then Hill High and Liberty are going to start in March.
Thank you again, Audrey and team. That was awesome data. So exciting, so exciting. So let's just partner to February 7th. Get to you. Looking forward to giving you all a complete breakdown and synopsis of everything that happened in Washington, D.C. last week. It was a privilege to be able to take 5 days vacation and go and lobby with. It was incredible. So I look forward to giving you the updates and letting you know what I learned, what the people that I met, and I can tell you right now that I was wearing HSC proud. Thank you. And that's it.
Okay, thank you to everyone for all your work and everything that you do. And with that, we'll end the meeting at 7:35.